Weird. Very weird. Hey, it's Nat. Hey, Nat. Oh, it was weak. It was weak. Oh no, another investigation. Fearful Gateway Church elder who has 6 daughters apologizes to Robert Morris, the accuser. Oh, Cindy is the accuser. What did this guy do now? These guys are always doing this crap, man. These pastors can't get their lives together. Good God. She's TikTok. Go to YouTube. You're not gonna be able to see anything. You will just see my face. Go to YouTube. Go to YouTube. We're doing TikTok. We're doing Genesis 4 tonight, but you can't be on TikTok. You got to go to YouTube. You won't be able to see anything on the screen. You're just gonna stare at this, and you don't want that. You don't want that. Go to YouTube. You'll be able to see everything on the actual screen, and not just have to stare at my face. So I highly recommend going that route. You can stay here if you just like the sound of my voice so much. Don't recommend it though. Do not. Astora, you lovely, lovely person. How is it? All right. Well, tonight's a hot one, primarily because it opens up a lot of the questions people have with the history of humanity, with Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, the other people that randomly appear out of nowhere that we get no context of. Who the hell are they? Where did they come from? Who did they come from? And other questions like that. Those are some of the things going on tonight. TikTok again. I highly recommend you go to YouTube because you can actually see the scripture. Otherwise, you're staring at my face. But your call. Your call. Ghost, what's going on? Well, I've fallen off in terms of actively pursuing. I can't read. It's already going to be a rough night. Actively pursuing my faith and what I think my calling is. And last week I had a couple reminders that really pushed me back in. I would be interested to hear what the reminders were, if they're something you could share, and then also what they reminded you should be doing. I think everybody's been there, honestly, probably 100 times. Probably pretty consistently. People kind of fall off the pursuing of. It's the complacency, right? You become complacent with the concept because life becomes so overwhelming. But really, it's not. If you really think about it, the comparison of what is overwhelming on your day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis, like in this reality, when you compare it to what the hell is going on outside of your reality, this reality, our shared reality, I think it puts things in perspective pretty hard. And it becomes, for me, it becomes very hard to piss and moan about my life when I think about how absolutely small it is in the grand scheme of things. Feels very important to me on a day-to-day basis. But with a little bit of introspection, I realized very quickly my life is of absolutely no importance whatsoever. It's extremely insignificant, really. The only thing I do when I'm in my right mind, I know that the only thing that I do in the grand scope of my life is that which affects the other side. But it's super easy to forget that constantly, all of the time. It's super easy to forget that. Anyways, I'd be interested in hearing what the deal was. Had a friend who stopped believing in God about 5 years ago randomly reach out to me and ask if I'd go to a Catholic church with her because she's thinking of trying again. That's a good reminder. What was the calling? You said you lost track. I don't remember how you pursue my faith and what I think my calling is. Are you clear on what that is? Or is this part of the figuring out what that is portion? TikTok, go to YouTube. You're not gonna be able to see anything. Oh, let me get Discord up here too, just in case. All right, the Discord voice channel is open, so if you go in there, just please mute yourself. Otherwise, you will immediately bleed through to YouTube. So if you do, please be mindful of what you say. Matthew 4:19, fisher of men. It really is what I feel my calling since I believed in God and been religious my whole life. It's going to be a really rough night, I can already tell. I also don't have glasses on, which doesn't help. So like evangelism, is that what you're saying? Evangelism is the thing. All right. Good. Okay, so Genesis 4. We've talked about a lot so far with Genesis, quite a bit. And just a reminder that we will, at the end of Genesis, there is a forum in Discord called Bible Study, and then there is a thread in that forum called Genesis Questions. So anything that comes up through all of Genesis, which I would hope there are questions tonight, because tonight leaves a lot of doors wide open with no explanation whatsoever. So if there are no questions, I really doubt that you're actually like paying attention or reading it yourself. I would highly doubt it. I have 1,000 questions from chapter 4. Anyways, after we finish Genesis, we'll come back and we'll do just a full talk about any questions, any issues, cliffhangers from Genesis, and go through all of them in as much depth as possible. Between Nick asking me to be a sponsor to be a Catholic, my friend asking me questions, having kids to raise, yep. I think people are relying on me to be a resource, and I need to be a good example. Yeah, isn't that a beautiful thing? When you have a bunch of eyes on you. It's honestly really good. I think it's really good. But yeah, you got to be able to step up. Otherwise, you become what is common, I feel like. And it's a bunch of examples of Christianity that suck, that are bad. And what that does is perpetuates the badness, and it just creates more bad Christians. And that's kind of why we are where we are. That being said, Cain and Abel. Immediately, 1,000 questions. 1,000 questions. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain. In case you don't know, Adam knowing his wife is sweet, sweet love. I think it goes without saying, but I have genuinely had somebody ask that before. So that's what that means. It means sex, obviously. Adam knew his wife, so they made sweet love down by the fire, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have gotten a man with the help of Yahweh, is what it should say. I have gotten a man with the help of Yahweh. Cain, there's a lot of argument about what the name actually means. I've heard them all. I accept none of them, because I've heard a lot of really good arguments and cases for that. It could go several different ways. So there's a lot of conversation, if not argument, about what the meaning of the name Cain actually is. What I think the best probably is having something to do with craft, trade, metalwork, something to that effect seems to be the most accepted answer. There's also a really good answer that is just, it doesn't mean anything at all specifically. It was just the name. So it could go either way. I have gotten a man with the help of Yahweh. I have had a child with the help of Yahweh is a more clear English translation of what it is. This is accurate though, like in translation. It's more difficult, like for English, to understand what the hell she's talking about. It's just giving birth is all that is. It's giving birth. But it comes through as gotten in most translations, which is accurate. So it should stay. But gotten, acquiring, creating, producing, all of these things is just referencing to childbirth. Verse 2. And again, she bore his brother Abel. Now, Abel was a keeper of the sheep. I like that a lot better than a shepherd. I'll just say that. It sounds much cooler. The keeper of the sheep, rather than a shepherd. A shepherd sounds very meek to me, but the keeper of the sheep sounds kind of badass. Like you'll kill someone if they come near your sheep. I like it a lot better. So Abel is the keeper of the sheep, and Cain a worker of the ground. Now Abel is a bit more clear on what the name means. Kind of, for the most part. Breath is generally relatively well accepted. The reason for the meaning of the word is, again, disputed. There's a lot of argument about it, and all of it, honestly, is pretty irrelevant. But we at least know that there's a relatively clear translation for Abel, and that would be breath. So Abel is the keeper of the sheep. Cain is a worker of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. This is the initial right there. The way this is being depicted can come across a couple different ways, but the most probable to be obviously true, maybe, perhaps, a little bit more than 50%, is that Cain just kind of scrounged something together. He's going about his day. He's getting ready for the meeting with Yahweh. And he's like, what's around? There's some shit over here growing. I guess I'll grab this and I'll take that to God. And that should be fine. So he brought whatever was around. Whereas Abel brought what? He brought the best. He brought the best of what he had access to. So immediately there's a huge differentiation between the two individuals, their intentions, perhaps the condition of their heart. Pretty dramatic. Right off the bat. So Cain, half-ass gift for Yahweh. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock, so the best he had, and of their fat portions. So again, the best he had. The absolute best of the best of what was available to Abel. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. Depending on your translation, it might use the term favor instead. He did not look on, I think it's more commonly probably translated as God or Yahweh did not look on Cain with favor for the gift that he brought. Now, what's interesting is that there is a bit of an argument about the concept of animal sacrifice being the reason God took Abel's offering with a better Cain sacrificed Walmart vegetables instead of Whole Food vegetables. I mean, it's true. That's hilarious. A little bit of argument about like the concept of animal sacrifice. A lot of people will say, well, the reason God looked at Abel's offering as better was because all throughout the Old Testament, we see that animal sacrifice is like a fundamental part of early Judaism, of Judaism. It's a massive thing. So of course, this makes perfect sense. Not really, though. If you actually get into it, like animal sacrifice is what's talked about the most, but the sacrifice of plants is also a thing. It's in Leviticus. It was also a part of this whole thing. So not necessarily, in my opinion, not necessarily. I don't think that's a good answer for why. I think the better answer, in my opinion, is that it's the condition of the heart. It's that Cain grabbed the low-hanging shit that was around and was like, here. And Abel was like, I'm going to give you the absolute best of everything that I have that I could definitely use for something else. I'm going to give you the best of the best. It's a form of honor. Well, because it's animal sacrifice makes it better. It's not sufficient for me because plant sacrifice was a thing. So they would be relatively equal, you could say. Yahweh was into Abel's offering because of the heart of the human, because humans have the free will to choose what to do. And Cain chose to be lazy, if not, just uncaring. And Abel chose to go all out, chose to give everything, or the best that he could. Cain skimped out. Yep. Sacrificed his old iPhone X that he wasn't using rather than the 14 or whatever model. Yeah, I don't even know iPhones anymore. That's a good way to say it, though. Yeah, it's like it's the old phone that's like been in a tote in your office for 4 years that you couldn't even sell on eBay at this point. Instead of being like, oh, this just came to me a week ago. Let me take my SIM card out and give this to you, God. That's also like, that's a great comparison. Yeah, that's a good way to visualize it. All right, so God not happy. Also Cain not happy. Cain was very angry and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, why you mad, bro? And why has your face fallen? This is another example of a form of anthropomorphism, because God is asking a question. Does God not know the answer to the question? If you believe what most Christians believe, you would say that God does know the answer to the question. He's asking a rhetorical question. And again, just like earlier in Genesis, he's asking, in my opinion, because he would like to force the human to respond using their free will. Otherwise, it's all irrelevant and nothing makes sense. And without that free will and God wanting the human to do the thing, forcing them to do the thing so that they can act out their free will, none of the Bible makes any sense at all, in my opinion. It becomes, if that's not true, the Bible immediately becomes an irrelevant collection of literature to me right away. It would take 0 seconds. For me, it's the only way the Bible makes any sense, because there's a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of it. Why are you angry? Why has your face fallen? Rhetorical question. Entirely. God is not showing anger towards Cain yet. He's not reprimanding him. He's not even necessarily expressing disappointment yet. He is literally just asking a question. It's the parent to the child being like, what did you do? When the parent watched the kid do it. I watched you do it, you little asshole. I know what you did, but tell me what you did. I would like to hear you say it. He would like Cain to overcome what is going on inside of him. I wonder if blood has some hidden significance we haven't fully grasped. I think blood absolutely has significance. You'll get called crazy doing that stuff in Christianity, though. God used the Socratic method long before Socrates popularized it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, honestly, to say that blood has no significance for the sake of conversation, on a spiritual level, I think means like you're not paying attention. I don't know exactly what that is, but I think we have more than enough clues. I'll say this. We've drawn absolute things for Christianity that are based on very little. I think there's a much better case for something like blood having significance on a spiritual level. We've drawn all sorts of other conclusions over the years within this faith system using very, very little, very thin, tenuous pieces of information. I think there's a relatively decent stack of information to have confidence that blood has some kind of significance. Yeah. What that is, not sure, but I do think it's there. I think it's hard to fight and say that it's not there. God demanded it in so many different scenarios, and that would be just the start of it. All right, so why are you angry? Rhetorical question. Why is your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. There's a lot. So, will you not be accepted? Better possibly translated as being lifted or being brought up, which in Hebrew a lot of the time is a way of like expressing, like earlier, favor. It's a way of expressing favor or like allowing somebody into the fold, acceptance, general acceptance. So that could be what is being talked about. It could be what he's saying. Possible other examples, though, do exist. But I think it's probably the most obvious and most apparent. So probably what he's talking about. Will you not be accepted? Will you not be lifted with me? Will you not be accepted? Will you not be shown the favor? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at your door. The Hebrew there is not crouching. It's lying down. Why this is how this is, I don't know. This is another one, like do your own study on it, look into it. It's ravats is the word. It's laying down. Sin is lying at your door. Would be, from everything I know, would be the more like accurate translation of it. Meaning that sin is waiting for you, is what is actually being said. Sin is lying in wait for you. Maybe crouching at your door just sounded better, like sin was going to pounce on you or something. I don't know. Maybe it was dramatic effect. I'm not sure, but it's not accurate. Its desire is contrary to you. This is really interesting. So if you remember in what was it? Hold on. In 3:16, so last week, in 16, to the woman, he said, this is God. To the woman, he said, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but he shall rule over you. We talked about this for a long time. I think it was Rodriguez on here with me talking about it. Because the translations are really wild. And it's kind of hard to fully grasp the accuracy of it. This is the exact same thing. The same word was used. And it was used in a similar context. The importance of the context is that it's negative. It was negative in 3:16, and it's negative here in 4:7. Which is odd, because it's not really how it reads, but it's what it is. And you can tell from context. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. Negative connotation. It is something, it is them resisting something. And it obviously has to do with sin. We can tell that from the structure and from the context. Something lying down is easily accessible with no barriers. And that's true, yeah. It's true. I don't know what it is, man. This is like, it's one of the examples like in the Bible where I don't get why they did it. I don't think there's a good reason for it. And it's one of the stupid ones that makes me it makes you want to completely tear the Bible apart because you wonder what else is like that. Not that it really matters. It doesn't change anything fundamental. It doesn't change anything essential. But it's just like, why? Why? For what reason? For what reason are you making people doubt the accuracy of the text so that you can make it sound fucking cool? Crouching at your door? It's aggravating. If nothing else, it's aggravating. Sorry for saying the F word. Verse 8. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. You're going to love this. Depending on the manuscript, this exists or this does not exist. In the Masoretic text, I believe, hold on. Yes, it does not exist. In the Septuagint, right? Was it? Yeah, in the Septuagint, it exists. In this case, I personally, and you'll have to research yourself, I personally believe it did not exist because the first reference text is closer tied to the actual, I guess, the early years of Hebrew, the early years of all of this, whereas the Septuagint was later. And the Septuagint also poses other problems, so maybe that has something to do with why I land where I land. So that portion may be biased, and perhaps I'm wrong. But it's just another thing to understand, is that depending on the actual collection of scribes, this part where Cain speaks to Abel will completely not exist entirely. Or if you're reading a text based on the Septuagint, which is 99% of today's Bibles, this section does exist, which is why it's in what we have right here, which is the ESV. Thieves crouch at doors. Thieves would have a dangerous or evil connotation. Right. Maybe that's why the translator chose crouching. I'm not sure. Right. That's my assumption too, is that crouching is like, it's like you said, it's connotated with this, like, this readiness to pounce, like danger is crouching, waiting. The tiger is crouching tiger, hidden ninja, or whatever it is. I agree. I can't think of any other reason to do it. But I think when you do that, like, you're disrupting the trust in the reader because it's unnecessary. It's not a matter of, oh, we can't find the proper translation. There's a very obvious translation. They just chose not to put it. And maybe that's a biased thing for me that just aggravates the hell out of me. And maybe some of you are like, I don't care. It doesn't change anything. So maybe it's just me being an asshole, but it aggravates me. It makes me not happy. Makes me not at all happy. Anyways, so some will have this, some will not have it. Did Cain know that Abel was going to die, since nobody had ever died before? Was he aware of the severity? I guess because they slayed animals, the idea wasn't totally foreign. I think that's a great question, actually. I think it's really good. And if we don't talk about it, we need to put it in the Genesis questions. Because this is related to some of the other questions that are going to come up tonight that I think are just, they're the type that just make you want to pull your hair out. Because you don't get these answers. You don't know. And you wonder why the authors don't include them. They include all sorts of things that are irrelevant to really anything that matters. But things that would be serious questions for readers in the future just are completely ignored. It's hard to cope with at times. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up again against his brother, Abel, and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" He said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" What a little asshole, right? I feel like people don't talk about that a lot. What an asshole. This is like worse than Paul type sarcasm and assholery. I don't know. Am I responsible for him? Like, dude, the balls it would take to at that time when God is like interacting very directly, at least if you read the stories literally, to be like, oh, I don't know. Why would I know? I'm not my brother's keeper. What a little asshole. I do not know, Cain said. I don't know where he is. I don't know. Does this remind you of anything from earlier in Genesis? Does it seem kind of like an iteration of the exact same scenario? Just about. Different circumstances. Same type of scenario. When God went to Adam and Eve, it was like, hey, did you eat that? And they were like, oh, well, he, but she, the snake. Cain is doing a similar thing. Except Cain is outright lying. Whereas Adam and Eve at least were like, shit, we suck. Yeah, we totally ate that. But it's her fault. And she was like, shit, you're right, we did eat that. But it's the snake's fault. Cain is just like, nah, I don't know. I just murdered him and threw him in a pit. But I'm not sure. I don't know. Am I responsible for him? So he not only outright lied to Yahweh, to God, but he also was a little asshole about it, which is just insult to injury and probably not an intelligent thing to do if you have the creator of the universe relatively quickly after the universe was created, where God's still kind of like moseying around micromanaging things. Probably not a great move. Doesn't really work out well for him. We'll see that here in a minute. So God responded and said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the ground." What does that mean? Which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. So just another like tick in your brain from what Ghost was talking about earlier with significance of blood. Just let it sit there. And as we go through the rest of the Old Testament, I'll try to remember, and hopefully Ghost does if I forget, to point out the significance of blood. It's not going to be continually over and over and over talked about and pointed to directly if there is no significance whatsoever. So this is one little check mark for blood having some pertinence of some kind. So, curse from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Very direct. Cain, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? God, you murdered your brother, you little asshole. And now you are cursed from the ground. Cain was a farmer. Adam was exiled essentially to become a farmer, if you remember. Women shall bear children, and it will hurt. Men will work physical labor and will break their back. So Adam, first generation, was cursed to do farming. Cain is now cursed from doing farming. His efforts in the field will be fruitless because he is cursed from the ground. Why? Well, seemingly because he murdered his brother and put him in the ground. And now his brother's blood is crying out to God from the ground. Little check marks in your brain. When you work the ground, God said, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You won't prosper. You will not be able to harvest anything. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. What a little pansy. You shouldn't have been an asshole about it then. In Hebrew, this is interesting. This could very well read sin. Because later, the same term, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the same term, it's a wan or awen or something like that. I don't know. I can't speak Hebrew. It's used for sin. And also the word that I say a lot when I talk about the Israelites and their relationship to God, that they held up a mirror to reflect their iniquity, to see their consistent and constant perpetual failure. It could also be translated to that, iniquity. So just an interesting thing. My sin is greater than I can bear. My iniquity is greater than I can bear. Yet most translations that I'm aware of will use punishment here. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if it's an attempt to not confuse the normal Christian view of the term sin, but the actual Hebrew word is used for sin, from what I understand, more than it is for punishment. So I'm not entirely sure why they do that. I want to debate you now. How do I do it? You are on the wrong path. I challenge you now. Well, feel free to reach out on Instagram. I will only do it if we do it live. I will not do it recorded. I will not do it in private. But I'd be happy to do it live. You have to be on voice and you have to show your face. I'm not debating an anonymous person. Otherwise, happy to do it. Reach out to me on Instagram. It's not going to be tonight, though. You can tell we're kind of busy right now. So let me know. No, we're not throwing Bible study for a debate right now. If he's got a question, he can, but I'll very quickly mute him if it gets out of control. I also don't know him, so I'd have to shut down YouTube. We can't have random people coming on YouTube. I have no idea what they're going to say. Oh, we're getting hit here. I love this. Hold on. Irrefutable lost sheep, Exodus 23:21. Be fair of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions. Where did these people come from? Somebody asked their buddies to come in here and try to light things up. All right, I'm going to ignore, so you guys let me know if anything interesting happens. Hey, J-Bon, I have better things to do than talk to you. If you would like to do it, I'll do it live with your face on a video camera and your voice coming through the system. That's what I'll do, and I'm happy to do it. You're a child. Still happy to debate. But we're not going to wreck something that we schedule ahead of time to piss around with you. Continue to be a child. I'm sure everybody will give you a lot of attention. I'll be done though for now. So Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. He's reiterating what God said. And whoever finds me will kill me. By the time of Abel's murder, who was living on the earth? Who was here? Besides Adam and Eve. Nobody knows. Why? Because they don't tell you. None of the authors tell you. We don't get any kind of explanation whatsoever, actually. We get absolutely nothing. So by the time of Abel's murder, we know that there were other people. We know about Cain's wife. However, the authors of the text do not care to explain anything else. I wonder why that is. Why that wasn't seen as significant. This is one of those questions that I was talking about earlier that's aggravating. It seems like pertinent information for the readers to be able to understand the layout and the lay of the land. The authors did not agree that that was pertinent information. These people just start popping up. So you have to make insinuations and you have to make assumptions about who and where they came from. And this is why the argument of everybody's related, it's where it comes from. Because people believe that Adam and Eve birthed everybody on the planet. Because if it's not in the Bible, it doesn't exist. Meaning, everybody literally is, to some distant degree, related. Which atheists believe too, to a point. So it's not a crazy thing to believe. But if you actually talk to Christians about that, they're going to have a hard time having the conversation. Because it goes against what society ingrains in people, that is wrong. Is it worth me reading this? It's for the gram, baby. What does that mean? I'm gonna slap you. Genesis 1 we already read. So God created man. This is from Dr. J. Smithers, PhD. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that is bullshit. If you are actually a doctor, then I would apologize, but I very much doubt it. Jay Smithers, come on, man. If that's actually you, I feel kind of bad for you. I'm sure you got knocked around in med school quite a bit. So God created, that wasn't nice, so I shouldn't have said that. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. That's not the verse. Male and female, he created them. This is a rough transcription, buddy. Created man in his own image. So God has an image. Jesus is God. Cool, I agree. Where's the argument? Did I miss an argument? Crickets and locusts. Are we seeing in real time just psychotic Christians coming through chat? Crickets and locusts, 1 Peter 4:16. If a man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed. Don't be ashamed, glorify God on whose behalf? What is he talking about? Red eyes on your profile pic are creeping me out. Oh, they must have watched my King James. King James is garbage. Happy to say it. It's absolute garbage. Of all of the idiotic, absolutely brainwashed Christians that walk the planet, which is the majority of them, more than 50%, the ones who are addicted to the King James version are of the absolute worst variety. You are taking the worst possible translation that exists, and you are doing it like a cult. Christians are already cultists of the dumbest possible things, that the minute you start to talk to them, they immediately crumble like a shitty cooked cookie. You are the worst of them all. The absolute worst of them all. The King James is fucking ridiculous. It's the dumbest thing ever. Our beautiful cult will always crap on the King James Version. 100%. You're free to read it, but it's ridiculous. I'm going to write a Bible because you can, and you can publish it. Anybody can. I'm going to write one called the King Joe Version, just to fuck with the King James people, because it's so bad. The King Joe Version will include unicorns, like the King James does, and other stupid shit that we know is not real. And because I'm on a power trip, I'm just going to write whatever I want into it because I can. As a political movement, because that's what it was. No wonder you have zero glory. Where does one see my glory meter? I don't know. Honestly, I'm happy because this is going to push the algorithm in a really good direction. So if you guys can keep them going as long as possible, it's honestly positive long term. So just let them go. If it becomes too annoying, then Ghost, I think you have the ability to boot them. But I'll leave that up to you. I'm happy to let them help the stream, unless it becomes too much. All right, so the mark on Cain, that's where we're at. Then the Lord said to him, not so, because Cain said, whoever finds me will kill me. God said, no, they won't. If anybody kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. Sevenfold is going to be important because it's referred to later, much past Genesis and into the New Testament, but it's also going to be talked about here in just a minute. So sevenfold, important. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. This is another example of needing to be careful how you read. The phrase is indicating not that Cain actually left the presence of the Lord, because is that possible? Most Christians would say, no, that is not possible. You can't just leave the presence of the Lord. There is, of course, like everything else, there is an argument that those who give in to sin perpetually become of the devil and are no longer in the presence of the Lord. There's an argument there, and I get the argument. Perhaps it's a valid argument. But most Christians, the belief of normal day-to-day people, that they cannot. The presence of the Lord is everything, it is everywhere. It's not necessarily meant to be a denial of omnipresence, which is what that is, God being everywhere. So Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. And I'm sure our new friends are going to love this because I'm a heretic. The Hebrew word Nod just means wandering. And most of scholarship does not believe this is an actual place, but that it is a fate. It is the fate of Cain, is to be a wanderer. Why? Because that's what God said. He said, you will wander. And then Cain said, I will wander. And then where does he wander? To Nod. What does Nod mean in Hebrew, which is the actual language of the Bible? Wander. The only issue is that it says east of Eden, but that's not actually an issue if Cain wandered to the east of Eden. It makes perfect sense. Nod, most likely, 80% in my view, does not exist. It was not a place. It's just the Hebrew word reiterating what Cain's exile was like. He was to wander. 17, Cain knew his wife. Again, sexual relations. Cain had sex with his wife. And she conceived and bore Enoch, our boy. Or is it a different one? When he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. So Cain knew his wife. This presents more of the fun in Genesis, where we don't have it. We don't have the understanding of who, what, where, when, or why. Where these other people come from, why they're there, and all the chronology of it. We don't have it. We know that Adam and Eve were there, but the narrative shows that Adam and Eve, they survived the issue with God. They survived the exile from the garden. And we know that they started their family from there. The narrator or the author does not say where Cain's wife came from. You don't get that. So the assumption for most people, they just don't want to talk about it, is that she's his sister. The KJV is undisputed. Who lied to you, Meatball? Oh, they're kids. They're kids. All right, be nice. Be nice. I'm going to change my attitude because they're obviously children. And I'm not saying that to be sarcastic. They have to be children if they're talking like that. Listen, kiddos, just relax, okay? If you're not a child, even if you are a kid, but if you're not a child, do like 30 minutes of research on the King James Version and then see where you land. And if you're a responsible young man, I assume, you'll probably see that you've been indoctrinated into a cult. And if not, then keep on keeping on, buddy. But take care of yourself and relax. And if you're old enough to have coffee, maybe go grab some coffee. Show me your degree now. My degrees are public record, so you can find my degrees online. They are available, and I'm pretty sure they're on my social media too. Because I do have them, actually. I wasted many years of my life getting seminary degrees. It's a big regret, actually, financially and otherwise. So you can very easily find them. That's public record. La La Land is a good movie. All right. Oh, shit. Oh, what a night, man. What a night. I just hope it helps. I just hope it helps. That's all, honestly. Offer specific. He's a child, Ghost. You're not going to get specific gripes. He wants to come in here and bitch. I see this all the time, like in other things that I watch on YouTube. This is how the chat normally is. We've just been really, really lucky that we've had a very tight-knit group and we get very few wanderers into the chat. From what I understand, this is normal. From what I understand, the moderators have to boot these people out of normal chats all the time. So again, that's up to you guys, whether you want to keep them or not. I don't necessarily want them gone, though, because it's good for the algorithm. But if it's annoying, feel free and boot them. So Cain had sex with his wife. Then he built a city. Two good man things, I suppose. But Cain is the organizer and the originator of what will be urban civilization. This is the first. So Cain, the F-up, who lied to God and then acted like a little asshole about it, has Enoch, then built a city, started urban civilization at the time, and he called the name of the city after his son, Enoch. Things people don't talk about. It's kind of important. The beginning of urban civilization is kind of important. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mehuel, and Mehuel fathered Methuselah, and he fathered Lamech. Lamech is the only one I care about. Lamech is the only one that matters right there. I mean, I guess they all matter, but Lamech is the only one that really, really matters. He took two wives. I'm sorry, what? This was normal. This is also a thing that was happening in early Christianity, whether you like to admit it or not. Polygamy existed in the Jewish world heavily. Polygamy also existed in the early Christian world, but less heavily. Granted, less heavily. It became frowned upon relatively quickly from everything we can tell in the Christian movement during the Way. But in the Old Testament, there was a lot of behavior like this that was extremely normal. So he took two wives because it was normal. But Lamech is the first known polygamist in the Bible. That's why it's a name that kind of matters. It's the first that we are aware of a man having more than one wife, sanctioned, essentially, in the Bible. The name of the one was Edah, and the name of the other was Zillah. Edah bore Jabal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. You can assume what that is. His brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. All I see is obnoxious emojis like out of the corner of my eye. It's becoming a little bit annoying, but I'm going to work really hard to not let it bother me. Zillah also bore Tubal Cain, which is thought among scholarship to be wordplay and not the actual name of the child. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tubal Cain was Naamah. Lamech said to his wife, this is why Lamech was important, because it's the only character that's actually focused on. What you're about to see is, or hear, is it's a Hebrew literary technique where there is the same concept is repeated in different ways. So it's the same concept twice, expressed in a different way. Adat and Zillah, hear my voice. You wives of Lamech, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. Now, young man is Yelel, and that's like a relatively common Hebrew word. Yelel is like a boy. It's like a young man. It's a kid, essentially. It's probably like Dr. J. Smithers' age, which I assume is 13 or something around that age. It's a young man. So Lamech killed a child, essentially, because he wounded him. He said, if Cain's revenge is sevenfold, and this is why it was important at least to start, then Lamech's is 77-fold. 77 is then repeated by who in the New Testament? Here you go, Dr. J. Smithers. Who in the New Testament talks about 70 times 7, or sevenfold, or 7 times 7? I will wait. You're obviously a scholar at the age of 14, so I would love to hear it. You've got about 5 seconds before I assume that you Googled it. Here's your shot, man. Here's your shot. No? Okay. Jesus. Jesus talks about 70 times 7. It's become kind of a trope among Christians, this concept of 70 times 7. I'll be forgiven 70 times 7. Christ won't forgive me 7 times, he'll forgive me 70 times 7 times. It's become a whole thing. Well, the origin is Genesis. First Cain, then Lamech. Now, Lamech is possibly saying something a little bit different, though. He's alluding to the promise that God gave regarding how severe the punishment would be and what would happen to anyone who killed Cain. What the response from God would be if somebody killed Cain. Lamech seems to see God's promise as some kind of an approval, rather than an actual act of what it was, which was, it was forgiveness, it was mercy. At the very least, it was mercy. But then Lamech here says for himself, he will have a greater vengeance, he'll have a greater punishment, there will be a greater issue if somebody attacks him. So either Lamech believes that he will have the same type of protection that Cain has, that Cain was given, or Lamech is somebody who's just completely full of himself, and he sees importance in himself, and he believes that he, in his own vast greatness, similar to Dr. Smithers, in your own greatness, you will have divine protection. I'm sorry, that you will not need divine protection because you are such a badass. You did not review. You're not making a claim. I've read 4 of your verses. You've yet to make some kind of claim that I'm supposed to argue with. I'm happy to do it. I tried. I was not even going to entertain this, and I tried 3 or 4 different times, and all you did was leave a verse and then say some weird shit at the end. Like the weird Twitter posts from Christians who just babble about shit. I don't know how to respond to that. It's not coherent. Yes, you should use the Septuagint. That would make me feel better. Yes. It'd make me feel better than if you use the KJV. It'd make me feel better if you use the ESV, the NIV. It'd make me feel better than you using anything, because it's closer to reality. So yes, there, I answered one of your questions. All right, so there you got a little poem, Hebrew poem. And Adam knew his wife again, so Adam made sweet, sweet love. to his wife again. And she bore a son and called him Seth. Seth you get to know later. For she said, God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel. And Cain killed him. To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. At that time, people began to call upon the name of Yahweh. So, the biggest question from here is the actual lineage of human beings, because you do not get the answer. You are left absolutely wondering and assuming that we all come from the same two humans. That Adam and Eve were the first and the only, and absolutely every human after that came from there. A lot of people, that doesn't sit right with them. It doesn't really matter. If you are one of these people that is the Bible over absolutely everything, and if it's not in the Bible, even though a lot of things Christians believe are not in the Bible, they're assumptions made off of things that are in the Bible, then you deal with it. You have to deal with it. Because if you're Bible only, literal only, which most people, again, they're not, but they say that they are. So in this scenario, you would have to accept the fact that everybody is related. Just, we're obviously very distant at this point. And there is a scientific argument that actually agrees with it. There are atheists who agree with this. So it's not a totally crazy thought, but it doesn't sit right with a lot of people. All right, here, Smithers, you have my full attention for at least 5 or 10 minutes. You can read to oblivion. Okay, I don't know what that means, so I don't know how to respond to it. Irrefutable lost sheep, Dr. J. Smithers, PhD. Exodus 23:21, beware of him and obey his voice. I already read this, and there's no claim. What is happening right now? Beware of him and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions. For my name is in him. His holy name is in who? Is that an actual question? You answered the question. What am I supposed to respond to that? This is what I'm not understanding. All of your comments with slander and ad homs will be hidden and deleted. Dr. J, no one sees them except me and Joe. I genuinely am lost at what I'm supposed to be responding to, because he answered his own question. Jesus Christ is both fully God and fully man. He is simultaneously perfectly divine and perfectly human, having two complete and distinct natures at once. I agree with you. What am I supposed to refute? I agree with you. I believe that to be the truth. What is the argument? I don't understand the argument. I'm with you. Brother, I'm right here with you. Little brother, relax. Agreed. Agreed. Try again. That is absolutely my top-notch representative. If that was intended for me about ghosts, that's 100% true, yes. He is the absolute top-notch rep. No doubt. Mystic, you decided to come on an interesting night. I responded to you. I agree with you. You made a claim. I agree with your claim. That is correct. The whole group has discussed that in full and came to an agreement. I can't tell if you're being sarcastic when you say that or not, but I'm going to assume you are because it's funnier that way. So far, I've read 5 of these comments, and I agree with at least 3 of them. I don't remember the first 2, but the last 3 I agree with, and I've said as much. And luckily, these are recorded, so you can go back. So you confirm, right? Okay, good. Have a good day. Is it that easy to make him go away? So here's the thing. This is why I've always said, I hope to God that this group gets a little bit bigger, but never gets big. Because that is the type of shit you would have every single day. My midget bro, you are disputing the KJV. You are medicated. I dispute the KJV as a translation, my friend. The KJV is not the Bible. It's a translation of the Bible. It's a translation off of a lot of the same texts that we have hundreds of different translations for. They're all working off of the same original manuscripts. The difference with the KJV is that it was a king who was a total asshole, proven, total asshole, much documentation, that he was absolutely full of himself, that he was trying to get the people that were under him to subject to certain things, and it reflected perfectly in his translation of the Bible. There are still things in the King James Version that I agree with, because they're just shitty translations of the same general principles that I believe to be true. So yes, I agree with those principles. I agree with what is said about Jesus and about God. Yes. I don't agree that there are fucking unicorns, or that there ever were. I don't agree that you should translate things just like we saw in the ESV, where I talk shit about the ESV, because they lied about translation, using crouching instead of lying down. The Hebrew word is lying down. The ESV uses crouching. It is a lie. The issue is that the King James Version is fucking full of lies. It's full of lies. It's full of all sorts of things that are just absolutely asinine, not even remotely similar. I could at least understand why they would use crouching instead of lying down, which is the actual Hebrew word in chapter 4 in Genesis. I get it. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I rebuke it. But in the King James Version, they say just some wild shit that isn't even remotely similar to what the manuscripts say. He took his absolute original thoughts and put them in the text. He changed political things. He added political things. It was all used. It was all used to control the people that were under his leadership. It's and there's no argument. There's so much documentation of this. There's so much. It's unreal how much there is. 12 people tonight. I'd say that's a success. And I'm not a midget. I'm a standard size man. Okay, don't offend me like that. I am a standard size man of standard stature. Asshole. I mean, it has a specific person's name who had crazy power and influence. It should be kind of obvious that the outcome was inevitable. Yeah. Yes. The Bible Code. So you're talking about a book from 94. You're talking about a book that is fiction. Why are we talking about this book? Is this what you're basing your beliefs on the King James Version from? It's not a historical text. We love our short king. What do you mean Joe is definitely 5'3"? Come on. I am, in all honesty, I am just under 6 feet. My parents were just enough of assholes to leave me close enough, but not quite there, that I can say I'm 6 foot. Rhinos used to be known as unicorns. It's even in old dictionaries. Oh, because of my unicorn comment. Yes. Well, I mean, because technically it's true. That's what they are, right? They are unicorns. We have a different modern understanding of what unicorns are. Lie is a weird word to use. Yeah, I didn't say that it, yeah. I would probably say that it lies. I could probably get that for you. But yeah, I'd be on ghost side, it's manipulation. It was manipulated, just like all the other ones are. The problem for me, and you can ask any of these people, I talk shit about every single English translation because they all lie. I've yet to find one that doesn't lie. The problem is that the King James Version is the most fantastical and ridiculous in the misrepresentations of the actual text. I apologize. My apologies, Dwarf Boy. I can't. It either has to be like a young kid, like it's a young kid that's male, or I could see it possibly being like a really angry teenage girl. This Dr. J. Smithers. Just the emojis alone. Like, no man who has any sort of self-respect is going to put more than 2 emojis. At max, 2 emojis. Not to mention 35. It's embarrassing. I don't know any man who has any self-respect that would ever do that. Our modern understanding gets us into trouble. Yeah, 100%. We're projecting with our flat chest in all caps tonight. And Smithers, I did a video on the King James about the whole history of it. So I've done this. So you can go watch that. And if that's where you came from, then I already gave you those examples. So feel free to look back at it. Mortal Kombat. I would be happy to do a KJV ripe. And whoever wanted to debate me disappeared. And I doubt that they sent me a message on Instagram, but I will check. And then I'm going to go for the night. Yeah, no, I got nothing. I'd be happy to do it, though. It'd be an interesting conversation. My mom is 4'10". Damn. You are finished. The Bible Code was written in 1994 or 1998. It is not a historical document. You get that, right? You understand what the actual structure of that book is, right? You understand this is from a man in the modern day who collected data, he aggregated data, he had conversations with people, and he put it into a book. That's precisely my problem with the KJV. So if you're surprised that the Bible Code is not going to become my new Bible, you haven't been listening, and I feel like you have, because you've been offensively responding, so I assume that you've been listening. I can't tell if it's a kid, a young kid, or an AI. Oh, I think it's definitely a kid. I think it's definitely a kid. I play with AI a lot, and the AI is much more fun to talk to. You can have an intelligent conversation with AI. We've yet to have an intelligent back and forth with this child. How I have a pastor friend who loves KJV. I should see if he could debate you. I would love to do it. Yeah. It's all like, it's very standard stuff. It's the history that's the problem. You can very easily find all the discrepancies between what you'd call the accepted translations, which would be things like the NASB, the ESB, the NIV. You can see the distinctions between the two. Important or unimportant, beside the point, they're different. So where did the information come from, and why was it changed? Then you go into the King James Version. Well, what is the history of the King James Version? Why was it written? When was it written? What did they use to write it? And what was going on with King James? And all the history with that is super shady. Then why things were changed makes sense. However, again, for the millionth time, for all of you who are always normally here, the ESV sucks too. The NIV sucks too. The NASB sucks too. They're all terrible. All English translations are not as accurate as they could be. And the scholars who know Hebrew and who know Greek have been pretty damn vocal about it. They were all changed and are continually changed, and new editions still, so that the modern reader can read them. And they always sacrifice the literal translations for the more easy to understand translation. That's where my gripe lies. That's my gripe with the King James Version. Don't change shit. Teach people how to read something. They don't need to change the text so that idiots in the modern day can more easily understand it. At best, have two. Have an absolute literal translation that takes learning how to read it in English to be able to read it. And then on the other hand, have one that's easy to read. But that's it. Why there are hundreds of different translations of the Bible should be a red flag to everybody, and I don't understand why it's not. It makes me think everybody is dull. The original manuscripts were there 100 different versions of them? No. There was one. So why the hell are there 100 different English translations of them? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I have the username. Why I have the username Graves? Why? Oh, the Misfits. That emoji is really scary, right? .58 isn't short, nah. That's like, isn't standard height like 5'6" or 5'7" or something? Isn't that the normal height of like men in the United States? I thought that it was like 5'8" or 5'9", I guess. There's so many trolls. If you want to be at least creative and funny, like I've heard it all at this point, I'm sure you have in all those servers that you're in. You are absolutely done, child. It is a source of past, present, and future events, all in Scripture. Thought you knew. What is? His golden-colored hair and beard gave to his appearance a celestial aspect. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. Never have seen a sweeter or more serene countenance. Testimony, Pontius Pilate. He is tall. What are you doing? What is he talking about? Translations aren't even as important as understanding Jewish idioms, puns, etc. Yeah, for Hebrew, that's true. Well, I don't know. I think they're both important. What gets me, and then I'm going to go spend the night with a beautiful woman and not listening to some kid yell at me with emojis. What gets me is that we pretend like the translations we have are accurate. If we didn't do that, I wouldn't really have a gripe. If we didn't argue theology based on an English translation that's been changed 100 times throughout its history, and depending on the author of the translation, has been changed more, then I wouldn't care. I care because we now develop Christianity, which was already developed. We're developing it and changing it based on translations that were written today that bastardize the original text. It's the most idiotic thing ever. And we just pretend like it's okay. We pretend like it's normal. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. It makes absolutely no sense at all. He's not a troll. He knows too much to be a troll. It's just that what he knows is wrong. I mean, there are plenty of Christian trolls. This is normal. This is like my Instagram. Often. They're often. But we've talked about this in the past. There are those, I guess call them zealot Christians, who just flood social media using a shit ton of emojis and just say random shit that has to do in some way with Christianity. None of it is coherent. None of it makes any sense. It's just random shit. And I feel like that's what at least the majority of this has been. And I tried to respond, but it doesn't make any sense. 90% of it doesn't make any sense. It's hard to have a coherent conversation. Graves, have a lovely night. Yeah, I'm out too. This this was something. I was hoping after I was done reading it would actually be like engaging, and it's not. It's just not. But I love you guys, and if he shows back up, maybe we'll just do the right thing and boot him next time. I don't know. Maybe we're on a poll like everything else. I don't know. But Dr. J. Smithers, I appreciate the bump in algorithm. You've done nothing but help me tonight. You've done nothing but help us tonight. I love you, because that's the right thing to say. I love you. I hope you take care of yourself. I will be at war with Joe if he doesn't listen to Sleep Token and report back to me. All right, I'll pull it up right now. Anyway, Dr. Smithers, we love you. We love you. We hope you come back. But if you come back, I hope that I hope it's better. I hope it's better next time. Everybody have a lovely night. I will listen to Sleep Token right now. I'll listen to it right now. I'll pull it up, otherwise I'll forget. All right, I got it. I'm going to listen to Take Me Back to Eden, The Summoning, and that's it, because that's all that popped up. So I'll get those. The Theistic Fellowship appreciates you. We do. We love you. We appreciate you. A new cherry? Is that a... I'm not even going to say it. I love you guys. I'm out. Have a lovely night. Take care of yourself.